What is the problem with those types of boards? Like what is there, do you see a fundamental problem with them existing?
The Chans?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that obviously there's a concern with their ability to control illegal content. But in terms of a site like, I mean, the Chans don't use algorithms. They don't. There's not the same level of amplification, and they're completely anonymous. So Chans are very old. Like they've been around for decades. What's new are the algorithms. So I don't see the Chans as being the primary problem, and I don't think Q would have escaped the Chans if it weren't for the algorithms.
Mm. Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I do understand like how they function. I understand, why people go to the chance, but it seems to me like the issue with all the fucked up content that gets posted there is the anonymity. The fact that people can remain anonymous and not be responsible for anything they post. They just want to post the most fucked up shit that exists on the planet.
Yeah, but what's wrong with people, like people wanted to, like, that's where the internet was born, was with anonymity. Not being anonymous on the internet, that's new. And I tell you what, like Facebook, man, people like I said, Facebook has a huge problem with illegal content getting posted there. And if someone doesn't have to be anonymous to say like the most fucked up things on Facebook, go there. Like it's a trash fire. So anonymity is, it protects whistleblowers. It protects people who have like things about themselves that, whether it's their like sexuality or beliefs, where they just want to try something out. They want to test it out, and anonymity allows them to converse, especially in a society that's more repressive. Japan, way more people use the Chans because it's an outlet. Having a place where you can anonymously say something and talk to other people, and it's not attached to your identity in the same way. It allows people to experiment with ideas. It allows them to express things and try out different aspects of their identity. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but like when I was a kid, there was AOL Instant Messenger, and you could go on there
I
and
remember
sort of
that.
pretend to be whoever you want. And like part of the charm of the internet was being able to maintain anonymity. And anonymity has been a tool for many political movements in the past. Being able to even just share like leaflets or documents or things that were written that you didn't necessarily want to be traced back to you, but because you knew the what the consequences might be based on whoever was in power. So no, anonymity is a tool for the masses that I don't think is the problem at all.
Really?
If we're going to say if there's a problem, when I say the problem, what I mean is there's hyperpolarization in society, and there are people who like hate each other so much they like want to kill them or something. That's a problem. And what's driving that problem is, I think, to a major extent, these algorithms, and they thrive on our personal data. So to me, that's the problem.
Right. Them collecting the personal data is the problem. But wouldn't you say that people being able to remain anonymous and say the most foul things about or dox somebody and still remain anonymous and not
Well,
get the not
doxing somebody is a different question, and I think that that's something that we could potentially regulate against. People being able to go on there and say really fucked up things. I mean, if they're not saying something that's illegal, it's not illegal. If we as a society determine that if something goes beyond the pale to where it actually like doesn't pass the emergency test, already those things get taken down on those sites. Like if there's an imminent threat, right? Like if it's clear that someone is making a threat to like murder someone else, they have to respond to FBI requests. That's not legal. It has to be, be treated as such. So absolutist free speech doesn't mean that literally anything goes. And 8chan or 8kun, along with a lot of those other websites, will respond to those requests. So if we as a society say, well, we don't want people to be able to talk about certain fucked up things, then we have to be prescriptive and say, well, what are those fucked up things that they can or cannot talk about? But it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to regulate against one certain type of speech or one certain type of way of thinking without unintentional consequences. To say, like, because, for instance, we saw this with QAnon, like they tried to ban QAnon on Twitter, the hashtag. And inevitably, they were just like, well, let's just pick a new hashtag. Let's pick another letter. Let's change. What are they going to do? Keep banning everything? So it becomes a whack-a-mole in that sense. And also, the more, by censoring things or suppressing them, it gives those ideas the, like, veneer of intellectualism. It makes them seem like there must be something to it if someone is suppressing it.
Isn't that how QAnon got catapulted into the mainstream in the first place when they got banned from Reddit?
Yeah. I think every time Q got censored, it made it stronger, because it was able to leverage that and say, "I'm being censored. We're being censored. Surely what we're doing must be so righteous that our enemies are responding by purging us or silencing us." So yeah, the censorship is what made Q grow. Yeah, very much so. There's a phrase I think is pretty on point, which is that the hostility of suppression speeds up the treadmill of extremism. So that sense of being silenced or suppressed, when somebody experiences that, it makes them more sure that they're right and makes them more likely to act on those beliefs.
But going back to talking about being anonymous on these websites, what about when you have something like this guy who was live streaming when he went to go shoot up the synagogue? I think it was a synagogue or something. The guy who was...
Well, he wasn't live streaming on... He was... Hold on, let me just toggle this.
Is it because that you're saying because it's when it comes to within the bounds of the law, right? But these people are like cheering him on. These anonymous users are like, yeah, finally, you stood up for us. You stood up for white supremacy and you killed these Muslims or whatever it was. And, it's an argument. It's kind of an argument to say, like, maybe this guy wouldn't have done this if all these anonymous people wouldn't have been like cheering him on, being his cheerleaders.
But you could also make the argument that if the media didn't talk about it, it would, you could look at all kinds of things that led to that. But the reality was, if we're talking about this specific case, at the time, the story was that he had been radicalized on the Chans. What we would later find out is that he had been radicalized through YouTube. So years earlier, he had been led to content that white supremacist content. He had flown to the Balkans to try to meet with white nationalist leaders there. That guy had a history. Like, he should have been on all kinds of watch lists for traditional reasons. So this is not a case where he was just going out there specifically to appeal to those groups. However, he was aware of those cultures, certainly, of the Chan culture, and that he did put it in. He did create something that was a kind of show for them. But where did he live stream? He live streamed what, on Facebook?
Is that where it was? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't live streaming on the Chans.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
And then that live stream got picked up and replicated and shared time and time again. So